Welcome everyone to the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync. My name is Hugo Bernier from Microsoft, and I'll be your host for today. We have a lot of exciting stuff today. We have the latest updates on the SharePoint Framework. We have the patterns and practices updates, and we'll be talking about the various open source initiatives that we have. We'll talk about our latest samples, and then we'll have my favorite time, picture time with Together Mode. And then we have two demos with Michael and Marcin. But let's get started with talking about the opportunities to participate in the community. You may wonder, hey, how do I get in on this community call? Well, there's a few ways you can do that. One is you can do a demo or a technical pattern on something cool that you've done, and you can share it with the community. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It can be sometimes just a basic introduction, and sometimes it could be a very complicated solution. It's all about learning together. You can also contribute on GitHub on some of the open source initiatives that we have, and we'll talk about those initiatives shortly. And you can also provide feedback. Now, you can actually request to do a demo spot on the call by going to aka.ms/community/request/demo. And let's talk about the open source initiatives that we have. We have a few. We have our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community videos, where you can stay up to date with everything that's going on. In fact, all the demos that we do, all the calls that we do are recorded. And then we throw in some extra stuff once in a while. We have some open source initiatives on GitHub, so you can go to the various GitHub repositories that we have. We also have a plethora, to borrow a word from my friend David, of samples in the sample galleries. And each one of the sample galleries are actually rolled up together on adoption.microsoft.com, but you can also access them individually by going to the various repositories that are listed on the slide here. And then we have other open source initiatives and samples, and you can get to all that by going to aka.ms/m365/community. All right, and we also have a bunch of community calls. And the idea here is the community calls is your way to stay up to date with everything that's going on, not just within the patterns and practices community, but also within Microsoft as well. So we have the Microsoft 365 platform weekly call, which is usually hosted and demos by folks at Microsoft. And then we have the Microsoft Identity Platform, the Office add-in, the Power Platform community call, as well as our usual Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community, which is bi-weekly, and the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework call, which is also bi-weekly. And our next call is going to be the Microsoft 365 Platform call on the 14th of February. And we're going to have the latest news from engineering on the Microsoft 365 topics. We're going to have our community together mode photo, and Dan Welling is going to talk about creating an Azure Communication Services resource. I love Azure Communication Services. And Sébastien Levert is going to talk about what's next with the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And finally, Garry Trinder is going to talk about the Teams Toolkit Learn Path and get started building apps for Microsoft Teams using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. And if you haven't played with that, it's super awesome. All right, and now to talk about some of the guidance on how to get started with the community, we have my twin, David Warner.
I resemble that remark, Hugo, so thank you. Friends, well, what is Sharing is Caring? It is a program that is here for you to provide guidance on how you can get more involved in the areas of the community. What does that mean? It means that we're going to join live calls together. We're going to show you how to do things like submit a pull request, create a pull request. What is a pull request? You can contribute to all the variety of areas that you're going to see everyone talking about today, but we understand that it might be a little troublesome to learn how to do that. So these calls are live and they're safe space. That means you can ask any and all questions because we don't record them, and you are safe and in a good area to collaborate and converse with all your favorite friends, and you're going to meet some new friends. So definitely be on the lookout. We've got new sessions scheduled for February coming up in the next couple of weeks. Scheduling more for March, all free, all the time, aka.ms/sharingiscaring. Now, once you have contributed, we want to recognize the amazing work that you're doing. And that is where our community recognition program comes in. This is powered by Credly. Yes, that same Credly that gives you those badges when you get certified. We give you the same thing because you're awesome and you're doing amazing work. And it's our formal and official way. You can share them on Twitter, share them on LinkedIn, associate them to your blog profile, associate them to your LinkedIn profile, put them on the fridge. Mom's going to be proud. We are too. So we do need you to opt in, aka.ms/community community/recognition. If you've already opted in, don't need to do it more than once. We got you covered forever. So you're going to be covered, and we're going to make sure that you get recognized. Lots of new badges coming out this year: adaptive cards, CLI, PnP PowerShell, list formatting, and SPFx web parts and extensions and team samples is coming this week. So get excited, everybody, because I know I am. Opt in, aka.ms/community/recognition. Hugo, back to you.
Well, thank you, David. I'm listening to David's speaking, and it occurred to me that David and I both missed an opportunity for a career in radio. He's got the voice for it, and I have the face for it. All right.
True story.
So let's talk about the latest updates with Microsoft Engineering for Microsoft Viva, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint extensibility with Vesa. Vesa?
Excellent. Let's go to the following slides. So just to recap on the growth patterns, we are skyrocketing again on the SharePoint framework adoption, all up. It's really cool to see the growth, and pretty much every single week or bi-weekly we do an all-time record on the adoption. It really a bit depends always on the holiday season and all of that. Monday, Tuesday, every single week it's spiking. Which is really, really cool. Just to recap on the latest related on the guidance, and especially now that this week we're rolling out the Microsoft Viva Home. That is a new experience for Teams to really optimize the mobile experiences and desktop experiences. That's now rolling out to targeted release tenants, and then eventually later this quarter, it will roll out to all of the tenants. And you can actually extend the Viva Home also using SharePoint framework and building those ACE cards. And we do have this learning path available for you to take advantage of that and learning how to do things. Following slide, not a massive amount of updates here. 1.16.1 is the latest version for production usage. 1.17 ETA is in the first quarter of this year. We're looking into getting a beta version of that one out later this month, and then the GA will happen in March 2023 for 1.17. So a lot of different improvements, technical platform upgrades, and all of that in that version. More details as we start rolling out capabilities. Back to you, Hugo.
Thank you, Vesa. So we have a whole bunch of open source projects, and we want to keep you up to date with them. And to get started, let's talk about PnPjs. PnPjs is a library that helps you make API calls super easily, get access to data, and all sorts of cool things. If you've ever had to handwrite these functions, you know why the PnPjs Client-Side Library is awesome. And to talk about the updates, here's the father of the patterns and practices JavaScript library, Patrick. Patrick?
Hello! So we've got version 3.12 is coming out this Friday, February 10th. We're really excited about that. We got some great updates around documentation, some bug fixes for some unhandled promises rejections, as well as updating and fixing typings for site data. So requesting sites, site collection information, that'll be typed now, as well for Get Document Libraries, which is exciting. We've got another request digest fix. I've had no idea how many people leave tabs open for 30 minutes or more, but I think we've got those all resolved now. And then we've got a create group for site method example is coming out, as well as a few other little bug fixes and things like that that'll be in changelog. Do not forget about our nightly builds. You can always install those. Those will have all the updates that were checked in up to and including the previous day. So that's a great way to try out stuff or unblock yourself if you happen to be waiting on a specific fix from us. That's all I've got. Thank you so much, Hugo, and good to be back for a little bit. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Sorry, I was busy closing all my tabs. All right, to talk about the CLI for Microsoft 365, and that's a command line interface that allows you to interact with your Microsoft 365 tenants. We have our friend Garry. Garry?
Hi, Hugo. Thank you very much. So updates for CLI. We've had a new release, so the slide is not that much different to last week, but we've got tons of commands that have now been added into the latest release. So if you want to get new commands for OneNote, Power Platform, SharePoint, Purview, Teams, and we've got some new things on the way. Something that is going to be really exciting. Something that's called CLI Context. We've added some new commands there. That's something that's going to be coming. We'll give you some documentation of how that can be used to make using the CLI even easier. So if you want to get the latest package, you can go and get that from NPM. Just use the @latest tag, and also you can use the @latest tag it as well if you are using our Docker container. All the release notes are available in our release. One thing I did want to mention this week is we're already in the 9th day of the month. We have 18 new commands already in the next beta version, which is incredible. So if you're wanting to check out what the latest is, go along to the repo and check out the new latest version. And that has basically happened because of the contributions from the community, and one notable contributor, Nico Declare, has hit his 100 PRs, pull requests for the CLI, which is absolutely incredible because he's only been working on the CLI for about 6 months. To put in context, Waldeck, who has been working on this for about 5 years, has around 500. So you can see how many he's actually done. It's absolutely incredible. So thank you very much, Nico. Okay, so we have a new release, 2 new releases actually of the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. This is a command line tool to help you test your applications that use any API. So any API, SharePoint APIs and Graph APIs as well, use the tool to simulate throttling scenarios, simulate errors and responses without actually touching any of the APIs. The proxy does the hard work for you. So in version 4, which is our latest release, we've made updates to the console output. So we've made that a lot nicer to read. We've added guidance for Microsoft Graph beta endpoint detection. So if you're using beta endpoints in your app, we will show you guidance as to why you probably shouldn't be doing that. And we've also added functionality so that you can go and build your own plugins, add in your own behaviors for your own APIs as well to the proxy. We've released our first beta version, so 0.5 beta. That has a number of bug fixes in there, so thank you for people who are giving us feedback. It's got a few changes in there as well. So one notable change is we've shortened the name of the executable to 4 characters, so it's easier to type out. We've added some guidance around paging as well when you're working with Graph, and all these will be rolled up and released at the end of the month, which you can expect at the end of February. And Hugo, back to you.
Thank you. All right, we have a bunch of reusable controls that helps you speed up your SharePoint framework development. So we have updates with the React controls, and the React controls are the one that you can embed in the body of your SPFx web parts. So we have the enhancement for dynamic form and site picker. We have added SPFx 1.16 support and various fixes, and you can find the release notes at the URL provided here. We also have the React property controls version 3.11.0. Property controls are the ones that you can add in the property pane, and we've updated with SPFx 1.16 support, as well as many fixes. We have tons of contributors that are helping with building these controls. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for helping. And again, everyone is welcome to contribute to this open source repository. And next, to talk about the Viva Connections Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, we'll send it back to Vesa.
Yeah, nothing really dramatic here, except we will release a new video series on getting started with Viva Connection Toolkit for Visual Studio Code within, I think, next week, as we're processing the videos and with Hugo, me, and David. And that's basically showcasing how you can use this tool also with any SharePoint framework solution. It actually simplifies development, so you probably want to check it out. It's in a really good shape already.
So the modern search, we are, again, with the modern search, we're building modern search experiences with flexible web parts. Lots of questions on GitHub. The site usage or the usage is growing, and version 4.8 is now here. That's the ESBC 22 release. You can get to it by following the URL here, but we'd like to thank all these contributors who have helped build this. This is our SPFx 1.15.2 update. We've added support for actionable adaptive cards like Viva, and we have lots of release notes with fixes and new features. And with that, let's talk about the SPFx samples. The SPFx samples are repositories where, again, you can create samples to share with everyone. We have extension samples and we have web part samples. We have 2 updates. One is a new web part by Nico. the Chat GPT web part, which is very hot right now. And people are concerned about, AI, but people should not be afraid of AI because it's a tool that's created and controlled by humans to assist with tasks and solve problems. AI systems do not have their own motivations or desires, but instead follow the instructions algorithms set forth by their human creators. So instead of being afraid of AI, we should embrace it as a powerful technology that can help us to achieve our goals. And, that was totally not written by an AI, and I, for one, welcome our future robot overlords. We also have an update to the Azure Application Insights dashboard by Kinga, and which was updated to SPFx 116. We also have another repository for adaptive card extensions with Viva, and to talk about it, here's David.
Thanks, Hugo. Well, not much to share this week, folks, but we are always loving new samples, so please don't hesitate to get those in. You can see all the amazing ACE samples at aka.ms/SPFx-ACES. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. In fact, we even have a demo of one that was amazing today on the call, so we look forward to that. Hugo, back to you.
Awesome. And here's my favorite time, picture time. We'll pass it to Vesa to share his screen. And everyone, you're welcome to turn on your camera. Put on a happy face, use it as your alibi. Show that you are here.
Let me unmute myself and put the camera on, and let me try to find where the teams actually went this time. So here we are. So here we go. It's always the same mess. We still have a few seats on the room. I can put the recording on. Let's wait for a while. Let's wait for a while. Let's wait for a while. Still a while. Do we get any more people? There we go. There's the few more people. Let's do some hand waving for Graph GIF animation out of that again. Thank you for joining once again on the community call. Really cool to see you. A bit pixelated picture this time. Sorry for that, but thank you for joining. Excellent. We'll Graph GIF animation out of that as well. Excellent. Awesome stuff. Thank you. Hugo, let's go to the stars of the day.
We have the stars of the day today, and we have two demos. And first, to talk to us about getting started with the SPFx form customizer with a boilerplate, we have Michaël Maillot. Michael, you can take the screen.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. This demo will focus on some key points that matter to me when you start customizing list forms. My name is Michael. I'm a 365 solution developer at onepoint. I live in a beautiful town called Nantes, which is the west part of France, and I contribute to some PnP solutions such as CLI for Microsoft 365 and the PnP reusable controls. You can reach me out on Twitter, GitHub, and I also have my personal site when I share some stuff. So, list form customization. What was before? Remember headers in the audience? What was it before? It was about customizing through InfoPath, SharePoint Designer, and for the luckiest of us, through Visual Studio. Just mentioning customized list form and SharePoint should be enough to lose everyone not in the audience, but not because you don't understand, but exactly because you know what I'm talking about. Remember when you had the opportunity to crash your whole SharePoint farm with just a few lines of server-side code? Anyway, good memories. So before SharePoint Framework Solutions, the package we use to deploy were called WSP. Yeah. It reminds us the good old days and also the worst, because the WSP could contain a whole SharePoint site structure files such as lists, content types, fields that usually relied to your customizations. Imagine a whole package which contains structure and code deployed at once, separated by features. No. It's not as perfect as it looks like. But anyway, when you wanted to customize a form, you started with a custom this form.aspx, but also with the .aspx.cs and the .aspx.designer.cs. You have the backend and the frontend in the same solution. Wow. Let's imagine that you deploy the whole solution with your structure, with your customization on your SharePoint farm, and then you have your product owner that wants you to add a new field to your custom form, which means that you have to add it also to your content type as a custom field. and add it to the custom form, and you have to deploy the whole new thing. So great, because randomly you could encounter some bad surprises. For example, the problem regarding synchronization and other problems regarding the structure, and you have to redeploy the whole stuff, or you have to adjust it, you have to upgrade it, you have to. You are enjoying the moment right now. So this was good memories. Anyway, before the release of the version 1.15, if you wanted to give users some specific interactions with your list, you could do it through web parts that you could deploy as application pages. You play with query parameters, or you could also include in your solution the legacy schema.xml file, which includes the list declaration and also properties regarding the URL of the different form states, edit, new, and display form. Again, this was not supported by Microsoft, even if it was working. I remember 1 year or two ago, a community member made a demo that was using this approach, and it was working. Anyway, starting from 1.15, we got a new extension called Form Customizer, which works by being hosted on a specific page, and for which you have to link to a content type. So how does it work? You have a specific hosting page which is called splistform.aspx. It's the same way that as the one you use when you deploy a web part as a Teams personal app, which is hosted in a specific page. Then you can associate the component with list content type, document set content type, or content type hub. Then you have some specific events that are available through the form customizer lifecycle. Now, demo. The important thing here is that when you just get started customization, you only have a few things in your hands to work with your list item. And when you create your first form customizer and run it locally, you will see that the interface is really poor. You have quite nothing available in the interface, and it is displayed like this. Here, we have only the M365 bar, the top navigation, or SharePoint top navigation, and this is the content of your custom form. So, in terms of experience, it can be frustrating. Let's see how does it work currently with a list for the demo. This is based on an existing list template, which is available when you create a new list. It's called the employee onboarding. As you can see, we have the SharePoint app bar, we have the command bar here, we have the separator, the breadcrumb. When I click on new, I got on the right panel the form, the list form available here. And when I click on an existing item, I got also the right panel display here. I can go from display to edit state. And this is great. Okay, so when we saw the default interface and then the default customization here, let me show you an example of some form customizer that I'm already running locally on my computer. And here we are. Okay, so except the SharePoint app bar that isn't provided by the SPList form hosting page, I reproduce the command bar, the separator, and the breadcrumb also. You can see that I have all my fields that are available. I can save, I can cancel it. And we have some parameters that are really important during the customization. We have first the debug manifest file. Here we have the component ID. We have also the page type, which indicates the state of our form, which is the display, new, or edit state. We have the related list, relative URL we are coming from, and we have also the ID because we are currently working with a list item. So let's have a look now at the code. Here we are in the extension declaration class. some information provided by the context that are specific to the form customizer. We have, for example, we have the folder info, we have the list, we have the item ID, the item, and the item is specific to the 1.16 version of SharePoint Framework, if I'm not mistaken. And we also have other information regarding the form customizer context, such as the display mode. So like I said, we got here the information if you are in edit display or new. And based on those information, we are creating a new list item object or loading an item. Loading an item through PnPjs. We are getting all the fields that we need to interact with. We are saving the e-tag. E-tag is the unique identifier associated with a list item state, and which guarantee that if you submit it when updating a list item, SharePoint Online will give you two responses, two possibilities of response. The first is, okay, you got a new e-tag because you update the item, so the e-tag has been updated, or the item has been updated in the meantime by someone else. So you got a concurrency HTTP error code, which indicates that you have to update first your item before submitting it again in order to get the latest e-tag version. Then I'm clearing some OData info that I don't need to, and my item is ready to be sent to my form customizer component. So in this component, very interesting things to show. We got the command bar, the separator, the message bar, and the breadcrumb, which are available for display to keep consistency with the SharePoint Online user interface. We also got the on-click edit item method, which goes from display state to edit state by just changing the query parameter page type. And I don't think that there is a method provided by the form customizer context to easily let us going from a display to another. So going through the URL search params. Then we got here on the submit save item, I'm going to just get my item properties states to sending them to my extension declaration class. And I can also handle error during the saving process. Like, for example, I said the concurrency issue when you're working with the e-tag, you can get a 412 error status code and display an appropriate message to your user or display another message depending of the error source. If we go back on the extension class saving method here, I'm just clearing some information regarding person fields because we are not working with this the same way when we are getting the person field or updating it in order to be sent for saving. So removing this field in order to avoid an entity set error, and then updating my list item or adding it here. And during the updates, I'm sending also the e-tag I saved before. Now, notice two methods that are provided by the form customizer context, which are form saved and form closed. When you are debugging your solution, it won't behave in the same way as when it's deployed. If I take the example of the form closed here, which is called when I'm clicking on the cancel button, as I'm in debug, I'm debugging my solution. If I click on cancel, I'm going back to my SharePoint home sites instead of the list I'm working with, which can be kind of frustrating. And it's the same for the save button. So to prevent this, I'm using a global variable available in SPFx, which is called debug. And if I'm in the debug state, I'm just getting the new e-tag value following my update or addition, and saving it so in order to perform multiple savings during my debug process. And of course, if my solution is production, I'm just referring to the form state and form close, which will both redirect to the list I've linked my form customizer to. Okay, we saw that we got a custom form with all the fields that are declared here, with each field, its events during changing to update the states, etc., which can be heavy. There is another approach that is provided by the community. Here, I can just, okay, which is the dynamic form coming from the PnP reusable control. I'm going to update my code so to refresh also the user interface, and during the rebuilding process, we're going to have a look at the PnP control. So as you can see, there are a few properties that are required. We have the context, the list ID, the list item ID, and events regarding saving, closing, and error during error method, which are provided. On the submit error, of course, I'm handling the error during the saving process. But I just have to mention my extension declaration class method and save and close that I showed you just before. And that's it. Going further, just have a look at how to deploy once everything's ready. So there's no user interface to handle the synchronization between your components and your content type. So once your app is deployed on your site collection catalog or tenant app catalog, and of course you have to install the extension on the target site, you also have to get the content type of the resource you want to associate your component to. So here, for the example, it was to the default item content type for my list employee onboarding, and see that I have my custom form component ID, which is linked to my three form states: edit, new, and display. Just to sum up about the dynamic form, I wanted to point out that it's an easy way for this reusable control to handle all the fields, because it's generated dynamically from the structure. And starting from this, you have access to all your form fields, and you don't have to worry about if the required fields are filled or not, which brings quite comfort. But you can't handle the buttons as a command bar, like I showed you before, because it's directly included in the dynamic form. And the other thing is that for now, the e-tag isn't handled in this control. But in the next release, there will be a new property that lets you decide if you want to take the e-tag in consideration or not, which is quite great. But okay, let's say that I want to link my content type. Let's hope that everything will fine. Okay, great. So now, okay, so it doesn't work, that's great. But if I just perform a refresh, and I hope that it will be fine. If I click on new, I got now my form customizer linked to my list. And of course, if I click on cancel, I'm going back to my list. If I click on an existing item, I'm redirected to the display form. And if I click on edit, now the switch is automatically made, which is great. Okay, so don't forget, just to recap. So like I said, there is this user interface thing that is currently not provided by the SPList form.aspx, but I assume that in the near future, this will be replaced by the panel thing on the right, like it's natively used. So in the meantime, just consider that you have to produce some key points in the user interface to keep consistency for your users. Also, make the distinction when you are debugging versus when you are deploying the solution, because it's not the same behavior when you're using the redirection methods provided by the form customizer. E-tag is your friend, like I said, because it's really something important, according to me, when you are working with list forms, and if you want to be sure that your users get the latest version and don't override what your colleagues are working on. And as you saw, there is the possibility to link different form, different extensions for different form states. But it's not because it's available that you should do it. Just saying. And to finish, here are some links that will be provided in the chat. You have the getting started with the Microsoft Learn documentation. You have the article from which I made this demo, and also the source code, the documentation about the dynamic form, PnP reusable control, and finally, a nice video made by Paolo about going further with the dynamic form, because it's about overriding the fields that are automatically generated in the form. And that's it for me. Thank you for your attention.
Fantastic, thank you, and thank you for the trip down memory lane there with your introduction. I definitely had some shell shock there. All right, now to talk about consuming Search API in adaptive card extensions, we have Marcin Wojciechowski. Marcin, hopefully I didn't butcher your name.
Very close. Much appreciated. Hello all. Good to be here. Lovely to see you all. Let me share my screen. I do have PowerPoint presentation, but I'm too afraid, to be honest, to hit F5 on this one. So I could lose something, context, respect to myself, faith in my office skills. Let's keep it as it is. Search adaptive card extension. This is what we will talk about. First, a few words about myself. I'm Marcin. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Here is a link to my GitHub if you find this interesting. Maybe other stuff I do you will also find interesting. Introductions aside, let's talk about why anyone would like to play around with search in ACE. And I strongly believe that, first of all, adaptive cards got quite a lot of traction last year. It's a big investment from Microsoft. The whole Viva story is shaping really nicely to a very complex and comprehensive solution. And of course, it's significantly faster than, let's say, Webpack which would do the same thing. So another good thing or good point in using adaptive cards is that we can actually expose our search results almost natively in mobile. That is almost because we know there is actually a bridge and few small technical details, but to end user, it's effectively native mobile experience when you can use ACE and you can actually call search. Support for the new and lovely feature, maybe not so new. For me, it's still new and lovely. So new Viva Home experience on desktop. And finally, this is a relatively simple and relatively easy solution. So even if you not want to copy the sample and use it somewhere, it's really easy to actually implement something like this yourself, which I hope I will justify in a second. So how to do this? We need Search API client. And the key is that this client needs something like set query. This is a little bit more implementation related. Nevertheless, that's the key. We need set query. To give you already some heads up, because you can use both SharePoint Search API and you can use Graph Search API, I tend to use Graph Search API only because Graph Search API, I believe, has much nicer response model. So you don't have to go through that key value list to actually extract your objects from the search results. This is why I go with Graph API search. But to be perfectly honest, SharePoint API will be a little bit faster, but on the other hand, will have a bigger response. So whatever you feel like, both are absolutely fine. Once we have that, we need to actually create adaptive card extension. I didn't pay much attention, to be honest, to the card itself. I focused on the quick view, and in that quick view, we need to define our search input and our search button. Finally, thanks to Jean, I was able to implement, or actually copied from his solution, a very lovely quick view to actually render the documents that are the results. And finally, it would be nice to have some kind of navigation events. And by navigation events, I mean, if you don't like the query you entered, you go back, you can enter different query without closing the quick view itself. So that's it. And finally, you have to enjoy yourself in implementing something like that. And I see I've been talking for over 3 minutes right now, only with presentation. So this is the time we hit the demo. Lovely. So let's take a look at what we have here. And here we do have new beautiful Viva Home experience. And as you can see, I have 2 search adaptive cards here. One is just a generic search and the other is news search. If I want a quick view, I want to find some test documents. Lovely. Let's search. We have some test documents. I click test and I'm opening that natively in Teams. What a lovely, lovely thing. Let's go back. Let's say I want to actually look for some news. Again, this is my test environment, so documents and the news are usually named test. As you can see, we click it and we got navigated to news. So as you can see, one adaptive card, but quite versatile, quite a lot of configuration we can do. Let's take a look on how we can do it. This adaptive card has just some very simple thing called initial query. Initial query is something that will be applied or appended actually to user query. Here we are looking for documents, but not SPFx files. And in that case, we are looking for a specific content type. That's all, nothing too crazy. I believe as a final step, because I believe no demo of mine will be fully completed without some proper hacking and something a little bit unsupported. Let's say we would like to debug stuff directly in the new experience. If we want to do that, we hit F12 as usual. Let's inspect our lovely home experience, and bear in mind at the end of the day, this is actually beautiful new page in SharePoint Hive. And I have my utils snippet right here. It is available on my GitHub, I believe. Run, and here we have lovely method called debug page. Debug page, and here we go. Now we are actually serving our adaptive cards from localhost. Lovely, we like it. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into the implementation details. And I believe I have it here and already properly zoomed in. I hope the zoom is correct. Yes, yes, yes. So adaptive card entry point. So search adaptive card extension.ts. Of course, this sample is also available in the adaptive card PnP samples. So you can walk through this on your own. What is happening here is, first of all, we are building Graph client, and I mentioned we need some kind of search provider. Here I'm using search provider from my npm library. I'm not sure if we want to go too much into the details, just maybe to show you roughly how it looks like. We have that set query method, and effectively it abstracts away all the building of search request, pagination, and I believe that's it, nothing too special. Once we have that data provider, we have to register our quick views. As you can see, the card view is just out-of-the-box card view, but we have quick view, which is the out-of-the-box quick view, and search results quick view. The important thing here is that we are registering it via this navigator. But again, nothing too fancy. The trick is, let's go to the quick view. It's very simple. What we are doing is on action. So when we click our search, or maybe I should actually show how the search works. I already did that input. So we have input, we have submit button. When we click that submit button, we are setting the query to our data provider. You can see here it's this data provider. And this is something I also highly recommend to play around with, because every quick view, or to be honest, everything you inherit from a base adaptive card, you can play around with dependency injection here, just to clear up stuff a little bit more, play around with separation of concerns. So we have our data provider here. We set a query, we call getData, and then when the data is obtained, we set our state of adaptive card extension, and we use Quick View Navigator to push new view. And that new view is, I believe, somewhere here. Search results quick view, where we just pass to our adaptive card the results which are currently added to state object. Now, if you're interested in templates, Quick View template, very simple stuff. As I mentioned, we have one input, we have one action, nothing too fancy. When it comes to the search results, it is a little bit more complex. As I said, I wouldn't do it myself. So once again, João, thank you very much. We have some columns, images, title, I believe, file location and last modified date. And here the only action is select action, open URL. And that is effectively it. Open URL. Lovely. And I believe that will be it. There is only some few words to finish up, because few importantalities I might have missed. Quick View Navigator object, very nice, highly useful. As I mentioned, I'm using my own library for search client, but if you feel more comfortable with PnPjs, if you want to just call search directly using SPFx client or Graph client, whatever works best for you. And as I mentioned, that initial query property can significantly change the context of our search, because my limitation was effectively, or my imagination was a little bit limited by my own experience. My experiences I either would use or documents, but you can imagine even by getting to our search, SharePoint search. Do I remember that correctly? Yes. We can look for files, sites, people, news, images, whatever you like. You can actually have a nice search with relatively nice and adaptive candy result set. Okay, lovely. So I believe that will be all from my side. As always, pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. And I like how you're saying, it was very simple when, it doesn't look that simple, but thank you for making it simple for us. All right.
I have to admit, I was told I might be a little bit dismissive when it comes to complexity. So this is why, if anything was not clear, don't hesitate to ask. I love talking about the code.
No, it was fantastic. Thank you. So thank you again for both our demoers today, Michael and Marcin. We really appreciate your contributions, and we look forward to looking at code. I'd like also to thank everyone for attending. The recording will be available within 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. Do not try to click on the recording in the channel, because you have to be a Microsoft employee to be able to access it. And so I'm just saying that in advance. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev and at M365PNP. And our next Viva Connections and SPFx call is on February 23rd. Our next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform call is on February 16th. And you can find all the community calls at aka.ms/community/calls. And with that, I would like to wish everyone a great day and look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everyone.